And we back. You know? So, my controversial conversation.
Yes, sir.
Conversation about the man, the myth, the legend,
Legend.
MLK Jr. And like I said, happy MLK Jr. Day.
Right
You
on.
know, I want you guys to take some time to really reflect upon who he was, what he really meant, what he sacrificed, what he lost for us to gain. You know what I mean? So just really, really take some time to reflect upon the fact that this isn't just like say a day off from school,
Right.
a day off from work. This man really did things and he really stood for things, and I think we should really, really take the time to honor that. But there's people who were just hating on the nigga. You know what I'm talking about? Just hating, man. And hating Hoover, you know, that's what I like to call his punk ass. But the
Never been a
FBI,
fan.
you know,
Never been a fan.
the FBI was just so adamant about stopping this man from taking over and really, really changing things.
Right.
Now we were able to get certain things that really felt like we were supposed to have them already, but we got certain civil rights acts passed, voting passed,
Voting,
stuff
right.
like that.
Yeah.
Discriminatory laws off the books, those kind of things I think were monumental, and I'm very, very grateful for that because they had impacts that we don't even think about, like Disability Act,
Right.
coming from stuff like that. So, but they still were so willing to go beyond the regular scope of just mean ass shit to just really try to take him down.
Right.
Like, why?
I think, like we mentioned earlier, anybody who shakes up the system or doesn't go with the go with the flow, I mean, you get met by COINTELPRO.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So like,
Bars.
thank you. So it's one of those circumstances and situations that I feel as though he was the antithesis of what they stood for.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like if black people or people of color, but it was specifically blacks in the South, right? If they are being marginalized and being held down or just being as an afterthought, you can still get what you need from them and move forward. Whereas you have someone that's up here saying, hey guys, actually we deserve to have a seat at the table. We deserve to be able to be a human. We deserve to have decent rights like go to a bathroom. We deserve to have decent rights like if we have money, we should be able to spend it at an establishment, right?
Mm.
And it's just simple things like that we don't think about. Like I went to Walmart today.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? Like so, I went and we picked up some food earlier, right? So it's like how many restaurants didn't allow us to eat back
Right.
then? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like it's things like that. So anybody who goes against what they want, as far as you're challenging your oppressor.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, and at the same time, he wasn't necessarily like they have a joke where it's like us begging for stuff is like going to your oppressor saying, "Hey, will you allow me to not make you money?" Right? But he was going around all of that, and he was like being able to break it down legally. And he was able to say like, no, by law, this is the piece of paper that you go by, and I actually know it better than you.
Mm.
So therefore, like, give me what's mine.
Right.
They didn't like that, and there's nothing they could do because they hold the Bill of Rights and the Constitution in such high regard that if they didn't do that or if they didn't comply to what he was saying, then their model would be destroyed, and their model is more important than
Yeah, you can always hold up a model and ideal no matter how illogical it is or
Right.
how contradictory it is, because the premise in itself was already flawed from the get-go.
Absolutely.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
Evident,
This
right.
man created, unless you don't consider the people in your field men, then that's the only way you could wrap your mind around the inhumane nature of servitude in the way that they did, like
Absolutely.
slavery. So but you touched on something, and it's something that I think about a lot. And I'm not really sure how many people kind of like pay attention to the turning of that tide, but it seems like to me that the time where he became a threat, he was always like a pain in the ass, and he was always on the potential of being able to change things. But I think when he became a true threat to the establishment and the order was when he stopped talking about social change and he started talking about economic empowerment.
Right.
He's like, look, all right, it's cool. We can vote. You know what I'm saying? Y'all ain't going to change much. We might get a law here or Supreme Court might rule on something here. But a man can never truly be free until he can own. And
Right.
he can't own if he has a master or if he's in debt or indebted. And we're consistently indebted to the government just due to things that have happened. And he started realizing, like, look, man, we got to change that.
Right.
So, you know what? This promissory note that y'all niggas wrote and said that y'all was going to pay, well, that invoice is overdue.
It's time to collect.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's when it was like, oh, April 4th, 1968, Lorraine Motel. Be there, you know, and it's just
right.
like what the, like he really was on that cusp of literally getting people to understand, like, all right, yes, we fought for these social changes, but I'm starting to see the future is having our own. We need this, and it's amazing that they were able to really discredit him and then reinvent him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think like I said, it becomes for the ideal of, like, you don't like this individual, but he's done so much for the country and for the world, but specifically for the United States, right? He's done so much for the United States that it would be political suicide, if you will, to go against that, because of how much attention is brought to, like, just things in general, right? Because what a lot of times we get caught up in the idea of if it was done in the past, and we try to compare it to now, it doesn't seem like it holds as much weight, right? Because, like, for example, if you look at any of Richard Pryor's material from the 70s and the 80s, and you compare it to some of the comedy now, you might not be laughing as hard because you're like, I've heard that joke a bunch of times, not realizing that the reason why you've heard it a bunch of times is because everybody copied him.
right.
So therefore, we're not appreciating the greatness when we look back because we've seen how much he's been duplicated. And so I like to think of the same thing with Martin in a lot of ways, that is like we don't appreciate him as much because we've seen his fingerprint in so many different areas in life over the last, 54 years now, that we're not really understanding the magnitude of everything that he did.
I agree. It kind of reminds me of how me and Tony, when we did the Sydney one, where, you know, as a millennial, you don't really get a chance to understand the impact of somebody like that because you're so used to seeing Denzel, Wesley, Kevin, all these, you know, black actors doing their thing, and it seems like it's always been that way, but it hasn't. There have been people who have led that path, and, you know, the things that Martin stood for, the things that he spoke on, while sometimes they weren't necessarily revolutionary, they were sacrificial. He had to put himself out there. He was all right, so I don't want to say he was a martyr. I don't think he had a martyr complex, but I do think, you know, we have to stop having this terminology of he died for the cause, because he was killed for the cause. There is a distinct difference. You know what I'm saying? He did not die for us to continue moving forward as a country. He was killed, and as a result, his legacy lived on, and we can use his legacy as a lynch point to be like, yo, this is where we started continuing to move forward, or this is where we realized, hey, things ain't right. Whatever you want to use at that time, it's like, cool, we can commemorate his death and his birth and his life, and use those as talking points to be like, yeah, this is how you be a better person because of what he stood for, what he did, and things like that. So I do think that that's cool, and I think that speaking on impact as a whole, like, that's how he impacted the world, obviously, you know, but how did he impact you? Like, what, as you say, you are a preacher, you are a man of faith, you are an activist in your own right, you are somebody who cares and wants to shepherd his people, you are somebody who has taken it upon himself to have this duty to be bigger than yourself. So what does somebody like Martin Luther King, who exemplified that as well, what does that mean to you?
And a lot of the writings about him and some of the biographies and things like that, he always talked about how there was like this internal pull to serve others. He didn't necessarily know where it came from, but like he related that to his spirituality, and he just wanted to serve other people, even if that was to the detriment of maybe even his own family,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because he understood he himself wasn't bigger than the cause.
Right.
And so he was one of the leaders that didn't make it about him. And that was the beautiful thing about it. The biggest impact on me personally is the fact that I learned that I can be proud to be a black man and proud to be a pusher for the things of black culture, black excellence, and to uplift my people while at the same time not denigrating or downing anybody else.
Mm.
And a lot of our leaders back in the day, it was so pro-black that it was a people felt threatened. That it's like, even if we hear it today, right? Like even with the BLM situations, just because I'm saying Black Lives Matter, or if I'm just talking about I'm proud to be a black man, that I never once said anything about anybody else. I didn't imply.
Mm-mm.
I didn't like
I know.
instigate. I didn't do any of that. But the one thing that I saw from Dr. King's life that truly inspired me is the fact that I can be a proud black man, push for black causes while impacting the whole. And we have to understand as a people, the stronger we are as a body, as black people, the stronger everybody is because we influence so much. Our DNA is literally wrapped in the fabric of America. So
Yes.
it's like, of course, when we as a whole are doing better, everybody by default is doing better. And I learned that from looking at his life.
Wow. Okay. Deep, 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 profound. So for me personally, it's always been about the dream. You know,
Right on.
like I've always modeled everything as far as my content creation, as far as the things that I want to express, like the deepness within myself has always been about dreaming about something else,
Right.
something different. Like it's not literally just the four words that I always say, dream to be different. It's literally deeper than that. Like a lot of what I truly speak on and like hold like deep to my core comes, I believe, a lot from the way that I saw his impact, the way that he does things. You know, a lot of the lines that I write, they might have a reference to him, or I might talk about, you know, different perspective based off of understanding that, yeah, he was a man of faith. We might not share in the same faith or in the same way, but he was still able to resonate on a spiritual level with me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like he was still able to touch something within me that made me understand that I had value.
Right.
You know, like he showed me that, you know, if you believe in just one thing, doesn't matter. If you believe in just one thing, then stand on it.
Stand on it, right.
Right. And that's something that I hold dearly to myself. I realize that he, you know, is the same like breath to me of the Sydney, of the Chadwick. Like MLK is no longer a person. Like he is an ideal. Mm-hmm. That is something that is like, yo, this right here is the mountain that he spoke of, right? So now he's at the top of the mountain that he spoke on. And it's like, that's where I want to get to. I want to climb. I want to aspire. I want to get to that level of being so self-confident, so understanding of my purpose, just to walk in true faith of whatever it is I believe in. And he showed me that by doing such, you can change the world. There's no limit to the reach that you can have. So to me, that was the impact, personally.
Beautiful.
I appreciate that. So I know that, you know, there's that talk about opposing forces. And I think that when me and you talked about doing the podcast back in the day, it was going to be unified opposition coming from different, you know, perspectives and beliefs.
Right.
So we tend to pit, you know, Malcolm and Martin against each other.
Mm-hmm.
But you said something interesting when we were speaking about coming up with the concept and the idea of the show, that, you know, to be a fly on the wall in the 4 hours that they had sitting down and talking to each other, you know, as we call them, post-Mecca Malcolm.
Right.
You know, with this idea of already going to Mecca, seeing the nation for a different idea, and then seeing Islam for a different idea.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, for what it is at that point. Like, and then with King going from, you know, all right, everybody, you know, come together to I may have ushered my people into a burning house. Him also coming to maybe a little bit more of a not necessarily antagonistic perspective, but more of a defense or more of a aggression. So it's like Malcolm started over here aggressive as hell, ready to conquer the world, but after seeing the world, he kind of was like, look, there's a different way, there's a better way.
Right.
This man was like, yo, kumbaya, we need to get everybody together. But when he realized that wasn't working, he started coming this way. So had they been able to get closer and closer and closer together ideologically, like what could that have inspired? What could that have created? And I think that's something that maybe we should kind of start looking at instead of trying to pit these people against each other. It's always, MJ and Jordan. Like, why? Why couldn't we just admire the greatness in both of them? I was so stuck on the Kobe LeBron thing. Who cares? I got to witness both of them, their whole careers, and I got to see greatness. And they loved each other, and it was like, they're not against each other. We're making them against each other. And I think that's something I want people to stop doing. Like, if it's in a competitive nature, cool. If you want to do it statistically, cool. But when we get so personally and self-involved with how we feel about a certain person that we're willing to fight to defend, we got to stop that. And we got to stop pitting black folks against each other, So like, how do you think Martin and Malcolm really would have come together if both of them changing a little bit about their perspectives for the better good and compromising? What could that have been?
I believe what it could have been is something that you and I discussed, and what a term that I try to, that I like to say that I've coined as realistic optimism.
Okay.
Right. So you have your natural optimist over here, and you have your natural pessimist over here, right? And it kind of sounds like me and you. Right. But then it's like as you continue to mature and as you continue to evolve, and that to go back to talking about MLK and his shortcomings is like we have to give people the opportunity to grow and evolve. Right. And we allowed him to do so, and we had to allow Malcolm to be able to do so.
Right.
So it's like, and not to compare you and I, because it's two completely different things, but it's like, if you weren't given the opportunity to grow and evolve to become the man that you are, and people just held you at a 19-year-old standard, how fair is that? Right, and so on and so forth. So I believe what they would have practiced with one another, because you started to see signs of it, is something that I call realistic optimism. It's like, yeah, you have the faith and you want things to work out for the best, right? But you realize the best might not be sunshine and Hallmark cards. Right? You might just realize that, though. And so it's like, okay, if the objective is to get the point B, I might catch a flat there, but did I get the point B? Right? And I think that's where they were both heading. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
I agree. Man, it's so cool that, we really do just get a chance. Like, me and you, we've grown up together, well over 20 years, knowing each other. And to just sit here and be able to, like, really talk about this man who, at a point when we were younger, didn't really understand how he impacted. But now to really be able to have this conversation, I think is really dope. And obviously there's going to be more conversations that we're having in the future. Shouts out to Tony, because Tony's got more of Open-Minded Skeptic coming. But
such an incredible show. My
dog over here also got something coming. So real quick, man, tell him about Chubby Corner.
All right, so Chubby Corner is it's essentially like this world that I've created to inspire people. I believe there are 4 pillars to have a dope life. That is your spiritual life, your mental, emotional, your physical, and your financial, right? And then the Chubby Corner is a place that I want to discuss 3 of the 4 pillars, right? Which is your finances, your mental and emotional health, and your physical well-being. And that's a place where, I'm starting up my YouTube channel as a subsidiary of the Open-Minded Productions team family, and there's a lot of things that I have coming along with it, whether it's doing comics for kids to understand self-worth, self-value, teaching people on finances, all kind of things, right? Just increasing the health of across the board. And that's the thing for me as I've gone on this journey in my life. The one thing that I realize is that us as black people, we fail Like the Bible says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge, and it would be selfish of me or anybody who's obtained knowledge not to share it. So I'm just excited to be able to do so, and I'm excited to do it with my family. Tony has been a big inspiration for me, and I love the man dearly. And me and Mike literally met in the sandbox, so it's great to do with your family for sure.
Without a doubt, man. Yes, definitely, definitely. So y'all, I appreciate everybody tuning in, man, giving us a chance to really speak on just how influential, how important the man Martin Luther King Jr. was to us. And like I said, it's not just another holiday, man. Take some time to do some deep, soulful reflection about where would your life be, whether you're white, black, whatever. Where would your life be had certain things not happened? Had he not said certain stuff, had certain speeches not came through, had certain letters not been written, had certain boycotts and sit-ins and movements not been started, what would life be like?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's not just another day off. This actually has some type of true significance, and I want you guys to be left with that. And I also want you to be left with two other things. But first, I want my dog to tell y'all goodbye.
So, y'all are amazing. Y'all are beautiful. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being in support of Controversial Conversations and everything that we've been doing. We just want to let you know that we have a lot in store and that we are honored for your support and we don't take it for granted. So thank you for your time. Peace and love.
And as always, y'all be good.
Yes, sir.
And y'all be great. One love. Just the bag.